This is a Bonzoleum story. I think this is like my third or fourth of my Bonzoleum story series. My vasectomy. A few years ago, I got a vasectomy. It was one of those things where it was time, you know, like, you know what, hey, you know, why don't we get a vasectomy? Sure, okay. So, I asked a couple people, hey, who do you refer for vasectomy? Who do you like? Who was good? Who was blah, blah, blah. My brother-in-law's like, Terry, I got the guy, you know, got the guy. Go in. This is down, you know, I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. I go down in Streeterville in Chicago. It's sort of just north of the river, you know, Northwestern Hospital. A lot of medical stuff up there. Meet a doctor. This guy is like Dick Champion. This guy's probably like 6'5". You know, I forget where he went to school. It's probably like, you know, he got his bachelor's at like U of I, and, you know, maybe got his, you know, his, wherever he got his medical degree from. But he was like totally, he had his, laying back in the chair. He's like, hey, Terry, he's chewing gum. He's all tan. You can probably take 10,000 vacations a year. His feet are up on the desk. There's literally a putter or two in the corner. You know, he practices putting, and there's, you know, signed memorabilia on the wall of various sports stars. I mean, like old and new. Like I think you know, there's something up like Jim McMahon and him are like, you know what I mean? But he's totally probably 55, probably has like a red Porsche in the garage. Terry, don't worry about it. It'll be great. We'll have you in and out of here, blah, blah, blah. Cool. I'm like, good enough for me. So, I think you schedule it like a month in advance, maybe. Maybe 6 weeks. So I'd sort of forgotten about it, you know. Now, I'm not a big, I think I'd asked him real sheepishly. I'm like, well, you know, what does it entail as far as like, you know, like shots and stuff? He's like, well, you know, we'll give you a topical painkiller, and then we'll give you a couple injections, Novocaine or whatever they use in your gonad area, and then we go in. So, of course, if I was thinking about it at all, which I was, it was the shots. I could really give a shite about anything else. In fact, when you're afraid of needles, it's not that you're afraid of any pain. It has nothing to do with pain. I mean, pain sucks. It's hard to explain. If you don't have it, I guess you just don't understand. It's the thought of cold steel penetrating your flesh. You know, it's more of a willy's kind of like total, what is it like? Your parasympathetic nervous system, whatever, gets all funky. Like you just kind of feel kind of carsick and like you're going to faint. You don't necessarily feel afraid in the sense that like there's a tiger in the room about to rip your head off. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so of course I was thinking about that a little because, you know, growing up, I would not get the needle growing up, Novocaine in my teeth, because I just didn't want the needle. I would literally I probably had 30 cavities filled at least from the time I was 4 to 18. I used to fall asleep with juice in my mouth, my mom told me. So my teeth would just rot. I just wouldn't take it. It was like, I'm not taking the needle. Nope, no thanks. No thanks, no thanks. I can't tell you how many times I'd sit in that dentist chair like, and I'm like, and the dentist would be like, Terry, for the love of God, do you want the Novocaine? No, 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 no. Another time I dislocated my toe. I was in the hospital. He's like, all right, we're going to give you, I'm like, no. And he pulled it without the no. It's the thought of cold steel. So over the years, I guess I've tried to whoop it a little bit. Anyway, vasectomy time. Vasectomy day comes up. I'm thinking about the cold steel. You know, I'm thinking about the needle. I'm like, well, you know, so then I get in. You sit down. You know, and the nurse, well, it's like an office. You know, I mean, it's like a big waiting room. It's probably like a body shop. People go in and out of there all the time getting these things done. So I go in and I'm like, hi, I'm, you know, Terry Keating. I'm, you know, ready here for my vasectomy. Ready and waiting. Now they say, you know, you should come with somebody like to drive you home or whatever. I went down there myself, and then I took a cab home. You know, I just figured, you know, just have a driver drive me home. So, what happened is they're like, well, here, Mr. Keating, and it was a Valium. I'd never taken a Valium before. I was like, and it was smooth. I remember being like, hey, it was kind of like, you know, really, it was like needle schmeedles, baby. You know what I mean? Sat down, looked out the window for a while, but then like 2 o'clock turned into 3 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock turned into 4 o'clock, and then finally, you know, I remember one of the nurses said to me, they're like, Mr. Keating, you know, the doctor is running late. He had an emergency. That's what they said. So I'm like, fine, you know. So I mean, we're down there in, you know, Streeterville, maybe he was walking down the street, right, and some old lady or somebody hit by a car is having a heart attack. So I'm like, well, hope he saves somebody, you know. So I'm just sitting there and maybe pick up like Golf Digest or whatever they have, and paging through, and so the nurse is like, well, one of the nurses is like, Mr. King, want to come back? I'm like, sure. Go back there, go into an office, and it looks like a regular physician's office. You know what I mean? Like you walk in, there's some cabinets, there's a sink. There, you know that big metal table that you sit on? It's like got a pad, and if you sit down on it, they can pull something out so your feet are on it. And then if you're going to lay down, they can pull like almost like that extra, that long thing out you can rest your legs on. You know what I mean? They might cover you with the, just like that. So I sit down, they take my blood pressure and everything. And that guy, you know, let's get you ready. So they gave me, I took a gown. You know, you get a gown on, you can take all your clothes and stuff. And I'm sitting there. And a doctor walks in. I mean, after about a half an hour of sitting there myself, like freezing my ass off, the doctor walks in. It's like, hello, Mr. Keating. And it's not my Dick Champion sitting back in the chair doctor guy. It's a different doctor. I'm like, hey, you know, where's I forget his name now. I'm like, where's Dr. Ball? He goes, you know what? He goes, Mr. or Dr. X actually is in surgery, but getting like operated on. Like, he's not the one doing the operating. Apparently something happened to my doctor. He had a heart attack or something. So this doctor, he's like, he was another one of the partners in the name. He's like, I'll be doing the procedure. You're in good hands. I'm kind of like, you know, I'm laying there. I'm laying on the cot or like on the big table with my feet out covered with like kind of a hospital bag. I'm like, what am I going to do? Get up and walk out. I'm like, okay, sure. So he's like, okay, let's get ready. So he goes over and he starts, and this, every story I've ever told, everything is 100% true. I think I said in another video how long it took in Chicago sometimes to go a mile. I might have said the particular day was like an hour. That is when there is a snowstorm and you're on the expressway, not at regular rush hour. That was an exaggeration. Everything else is God's honest truth. So here we are, laying on the table. He's washing up his hands. And without looking at me, he's like, all right, Mr. You know, like, he's like, Mr. Keating, just so you know, he said, I do the procedure. I forget how he said it. He said, I do it the other way. Or I do it the old way. Or I do it, he might have said the name of the method, like the von Richtenpimple method. Dr. Blah, blah, blah uses the Gestormpedon method. Is that okay? Or whatever. I'm like, sure. Honest to God. However it was put, he made it clear to me that it would... He's also a different doctor. He's also going to use a slightly different procedure or a different method or whatever the hell it is. I'm like, fine. Got the Valium probably wearing off at this point. So he's like, good, fine. So he goes, he's like, all right. He's like, are you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. And I'm getting a little nervous, you know. And just like, okay. And, you know, when you get nervous, these things, you know, suddenly you're laying there naked. There's your package. You know what I mean? And, I remember being really nervous. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to be like two like 23-year-old nurses in here, like with him. You know what I mean? Like, me and my light switch, like, hey, you know what I mean? And it was just him. Thank God. So, so he goes, okay, well, you know what? Here's the thing. I remember now. The first doctor apparently was in who wasn't there now because of some emergency thing, had told me. I had asked. I said, do I have to shave? You know, you got to shave? Oh, no, nothing. So I'm there, and he goes, and he pulls a bic out, you know, like one of those ladies' bics, like like white with like a yellow top. He's like, well, we have to shave you a little. I remember being like, okay. So he goes, and he kind of, you know, he sort of picks up your, this is PG-13. He sort of picks your, kind of lifts your shorts up, you know, like in, you know, like the bar, you know, like at the bar where you see the cartoons where, you know, the guy's like, you know, they get under there with this, like that a little, you know. But what happens is, honest to God, he starts shaving. There's no shaving cream. Oh God, was there shaving cream? I don't think there was. Whatever happens, it tickled. But like, a lot. Like, I could not stop laughing. Like, I could not stop laughing. Like, hysterically. Like, I have this thing, like, below my waist. If somebody just grabs my knee, I mean, I laugh. I'm really sensitive, right? So he's like, God, was there shaving cream? There wasn't. He didn't put shaving cream, I think. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, it's not that your balls are necessarily that furry. There's a few hairs sticking out of them, right? So he's like, and as he's doing it, you know, he's going faster, and he looks really uncomfortable. I mean, obviously, right? Because I'm laying there, I mean, laughing hysterically because it's, I mean, it tickled. I don't know what else to say, you know. And he kind of laughed a little nervously, and he's kind of trying to get it done. He's like, hi. He's like, and then he finally says, please, Mr. Keating, you know, the nurses are going to wonder what the hell's going on in here. I say half kiddingly, but kind of not, you know. So So I'm sitting there laughing hysterically. Finally, he's done, right? So then, of course, when he's done, the second he's done, I start apologizing profusely. I mean, then I regain my self-control. I'm like, you know, Doc, I'm so sorry. You know, oh no, Mr. King, sorry, it happens all the time. You know, I don't think it does. You know, but I just couldn't stop laughing. That laughing was about to change. So he's like, all right, Mr. King, you ready? I'm like, sure. So you lay back, and he's like, okay, and they put, is it iodine or iodide? It's some sterilizing thing before surgery that's kind of an orange. It's kind of an orange, reddish orange, stainy color. So we swab some of that on my, well, in my case, on my ball sack. Gets it on there, and he's like, okay, right? And he gets, and then what he did was he took, like, I guess, like, because now I get Novocaine. You know, they take a Q-tip and they sort of put like a topical on there before they give you the needle. Same thing. Put something on my balls, babe. And he's like, all right, you ready? And at this point, I remember the needle coming out and kind of feeling, again, it's hard to explain with the needle. You don't feel, again, you're not like afraid of pain. Like, it's not fear. It's I guess it's like a real, like, sort of systemic sort of like dread fear. So I kind of, but I was already laying down, so I wasn't going to faint, or, I mean, I wasn't going to be like, you know what I mean? So he's like, and I'm like, oh, puts the shot in, waits a second, puts another one in. I'm like, I'm sitting there like, this is nothing, you know? I'm like, oh, and I had been so fixated on the needle, which turned out to be needle. You know, one of my friends, he's like, oh, you know, Terry, you know, it's no problem at all, except the shots. The shots killed, you know. So I'm thinking to myself, like, God, I didn't even feel anything shotville, you know. So I'm thinking, like, great. I'm like, we'll be out of here in an hour. I'm gonna go home. We'll go out to eat tonight. I'm sitting there, like, I'm sitting back thinking, like, I'm made in the shade. And the doctor goes, he goes, all right, Mr. King, you ready? I'm like, yeah. He goes, okay. And he goes, I'm going to make the incision now. And I think he was a little nervous because when he also went to put the shots in a little, I think he was afraid I was going to start laughing again. But it's a, you know, I wasn't, you know. So I think he thought, too, that maybe if he was going to make this incision with this razor-sharp blade, that maybe I was going to start, I don't know. But you could tell he was sort of like, he's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, good. Made the incision. And then he says, now that we're at this point, I'm laying on my back, supine, or what, I'm laying there, and he goes, again, Mr. Keating, he goes, just so you know, there's going to be some pain and discomfort here. Just, you know, be aware. And I remember kind of being like the first doctor had said it really didn't hurt that much. You know what I mean? And again, I mean, I'm afraid of shots. I mean, I think pain-wise, I have a pretty high pain threshold. I mean, I'm not, you know, I mean, I'd rather not have pain. So I'm kind of like, well, all right, well, I guess, you know, I guess I do hit, this guy has my balls cut open, you know? So he's like, okay. So I'm like, you sort of wait there for a second. It's kind of quiet, and he's, you know, he's kind of this, and as if a light switch, like a switch, you know, like the death switch, like the electric chair switch, you know, like the, like, you know, like sparks and arcs and shit happen. It was like, and instantaneously, do you know when you get kicked, well, men, when you get kicked in the balls, or even if you get like tapped in the, like sometimes during fornicate, like if you know, if every time your utsac nay swings around and gets even a slight bit, one of these, a slight bit, do you know that instant pain that almost seems to spiral up from your groin into your, like that really horrible, like pain? It was freaking 100%. But now, normally when you get like kicked or kneed in the balls, or you know, or whatever, it's like there's the attack, right? You get hit, and then there's that pain, like that. But then it kind of immediately, typically, it subsides, like, and then you sort of have like a refractory period of like tiredness, ache. Well, this was like, I want to say a good almost 2 minutes of the, like that split second of like, it's on. It was unbelievable. I was like, and he's, of course, down there. He's like the pilot, you know, flying a 747 that's about to crash into the woods. He's like, oh, you know, we're going down. Mayday, mayday, mayday. You know, he's as cool at Mr. Keating. It'll be okay. It'll be done in a minute. And I'm laying there, I'm like, and I'm like, and I start pounding the wall, like, and he goes, like, he was so worried about me when I was laughing before with the nurses or whatever. At this point, he's like, it's all right, Mr. Keating, you make all the noise you want. I'm like, and this went on. And I couldn't feel any, like, tugging or anything like that. I mean, but it was just like, it was like, I guess if this is your schmalls, right? And somebody just went, like, well, that impact, like right at that point, where that pain goes, it was like stuck on, like, and it went on and on and on. I'm writhing. I'm like, oh, I'm sweating. I'm like, I felt like I was gonna fucking pass. Pardon my French. I thought I was gonna pass out. I was like, oh my God, it was like the worst kind of pain. It goes on and on, on and on, and on and on, and then on and on, and on and on. And you're like, and the point where you're almost like, and the thing is you can't do anything, because you know you're laying down. Like if it was anything else, you'd get up and be like, God, you know, stop it. I'm not gonna get up and suddenly have the innards of my ball sack start dripping out, like have like my machinery start dangling out all purple and drippy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sitting there thinking, like, he's literally got me by the balls, because he had me by the balls, as they say. And I'm like, and I just didn't know what to do. So this goes on and on and on, and it stops. It's honest to God, as quickly as it started. It was like, poof, and it stopped. And I was like, ah. It was like, literally. And I'm thinking to myself, like, God, this is what it must be like when ladies have, like, babies, you know? He's like, well, Mr. Keating, he's like, oh. He's like, okay. He's like, you know, I'm like, thank God. I mean, I felt like, God, the relief I felt. He's like, you okay? I can't remember if he said you want some water. Maybe I asked for it. He said you couldn't have it. I don't know. Something like that. It was like, are you okay? You know, can I get you anything kind of thing? I'm like, yeah. Like, it's okay. He goes, okay. Now we're going to do the other side. Well, you got 2 balls, right? So I was like, he's like, are you ready? And I'm thinking to myself, just like, the same thing. It was agony for like a minute and a half. I mean, this one might have gone a little faster, but it was the same thing. It was unbearable, like that acute gonad agony. You know, the one that, again, not like the ache later where you're on the ground kind of like, oh, not that, like where it's gone, like where it's reached its peak and it's sort of, you know, decaying. Like the guy that hits the thing at the fair, bing! It's like if the thing hit the bottom of the bell and went, ding! Like that, okay? So this goes on and on. Finally, again, it stops. I remember being like, it's like, all right, we're going to sew you up. I'm just like, you know, at this point, man, he could have just taken a hatchet and been like, I would have been, I mean, sew you up. He's kind of like, you know, you okay? And I kind of get up, and he's like, okay, Mr. King, what they do? They're like, when you go home, you probably take like a bag of peas, like frozen peas. But in the meantime, they give you like a disposable sort of like a cotton kind of sack envelope, and they fill it, they fill it with ice, you know, kind of that crunchy, air-filled sort of hospital ice that's really easy to chew, like when people are sick and stuff, and it melts fast. Like that, and literally, like, you stuff it in your pants. And I just feel like freaking like walking out into the waiting room. So that's kind of really it. That's the story of my vasectomy. So, but here's the thing. I was waiting, you know, when I went home, I was waiting to see on the news that night, you know, it would be just my luck to have somebody like, you know, and they found a man who was impersonating a doctor at Northwestern today, and well, he actually turned out to be one of the partners, like an actual doctor. So I don't know if anyone else has gotten a vasectomy, what your experience was. But that was my experience. So, anyway, that's another Bonzoleum story. Here we are screaming into March. It's still really cold. I don't know what the deal is. March comes up in like 5 days. More videos on the way, more drum videos on the way. Thank you for subscribing.